Looking for an epic mid-length surfboard to add to your quiver? Well, here's my full review of the Slater Designs Boss Up. Hi guys, Chris from Stoked for Travel here. Welcome back to the channel. Now before I get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any video goodness. Now today we're back talking about mid-length surfboards, and it's the follow-up to my last video, which is the Slater Designs Boss Up, the latest collaboration between Kelly Slater and Dan Mann. Now if you have watched my last video, it was my buddy Adam testing out the board, absolutely shredding at the pass in Byron Bay. So I thought I'd bring you the full review of the board, which is actually now a collaboration between his testing and also since coming back from injury, I've been surfing this board quite a bit, testing it out, getting it under my feet and really getting a feel for this new mid-length surfboard. So yeah, if you're looking to add it to your quiver, here's my full review. So first up, who is the Slater Designs Boss Up aimed at? Well, it certainly is a mid-length that seems to be aimed at the masses. If you're kind of high-end beginner and upwards, the longer versions of this board are going to give you plenty of paddle power, high wave count, and also lots of fun factor while allowing you to progress your turns. Whilst more advanced surfers are really going to love the range of swell the board that this board can be used in, and of course the performance that's packed in there as well. Although this isn't going to be a mid-length surfboard for kind of lower-end beginner and high-end beginner surfers, I'd check out the likes of the Cape Collective Midway, the Thunderbolt Mo, or even the Skin Dog Over if you fit into that category. If you are comfortable on green, unbroken waves and you're really starting to progress your turns, you want more maneuverability whilst keeping plenty of paddle power and wave count, this is going to be a great board for you. And of course, people like Kelly are surfing this board, shows that anyone up to professional level surfers are going to absolutely froth out on this board, and there's a whole heap of performance in there, and it can handle a huge array of swells as well. And now Shaper Dan Mann, who's the guy behind the Slater Design Boss Up, has a big track record of creating user-friendly performance boards. So the likes of the Mashup and the Dominator 2, just to name two of them. And this Boss Up board is definitely one to add to that growing list. So yeah. Now when it comes to board breakdown, sizing and dimensions, the Boss Up comes in sizes slightly above where the standard S-Boss does. So it starts at a 6'6" and runs right through to a 7'6" board. Now for me, I went for the 7'2" option, which is very similar in dimensions to my Broken Arrow mid-length twin, which is one of my go-to boards. So I knew it was going to be something that I'd be able to surf, and it was really fun dimensions that I know I can ride. And the 7'2" comes in at 20.5 by 3 inches and packs in about 46.4 litres of foam. Now Dan Mann reckons anything around 13 litres more than your standard daily driver shortboard with this board, but also because of the clever way the foam is wrapped in this board and hidden within it, the kind of volume factor isn't really that specific. You can be pretty lenient with this and you're not really going to over foam it that quickly. For me, I really wanted this board as a full true mid-length, which is why I went for the 7'2". I feel like if I went for some of the shorter 6'6" or 6'8" boards, or even the 6'10", it would feel a bit too much like an inflated short board, and I really wanted that mid-length feel. I also seen a lot of people surfing in those smaller sizes, and I really just wanted to mix things up and test it out as a true mid-length, which is why I went for the 7'2". Now, one of the first things Adam said when he saw the board for the first time, and also my buddy Andy, who also tested out the board on the same day, was the fact that the tail of the Boss Up very much resembled the tail of the TJ Pro, which they both ride as one of their performance longboards. And now this didn't actually come as that much of a shock, given the fact that the TJ Pro was also designed by Dan Mann. So it's very clear that Dan has merged his extensive knowledge of performance shortboarding and performance longboarding together to create the Boss Up. And now one of the other characteristics of the Boss Up, which is going to be one of the first things you'll notice when you pick up the board and run your hands over it, is that pronounced spine through the bottom of the board with that double concave. Now, it might sound a bit of a marketing gimmick, but Dan Mann was talking about how it then rolls from rail to rail for easy maneuverability. But honestly, it really does transition into the surfer as well. I found that board turned way easier than it should do for a 7'2". It felt a lot shorter than it was. So it has all the glide of a mid-length whilst all the maneuverability of a short board, which is why I think a lot of people are going to absolutely love this board. Now, when it comes to the ideal wave conditions for the Slater Designs Boss Up, it really is a board that will go in pretty much anything you'll throw at it. From the kind of waves I've surfed it in, kind of like medium-sized beach breaks, reeling point breaks, Adam's tested it out in a few more pumping days at the point, right through to the likes of Kelly Slater, Michelle Perez, and Kevin Schultz, throwing it into some really heavy stuff, including some huge barrels. It really is a capable board that will handle anything the swell is doing. That being said though, for me it wasn't a truly grovelling mid-length. Even in the longer lengths it did need a little bit of shape to the wave to really get it going, and because of the epoxy build on this, really windy bumpy conditions are not really going to be super favourable with this board. But let's face it, pretty much any board is going to go better in a bigger, cleaner wave than it is small and bumpy. So yeah, when it comes to ideal wave conditions, anything from kind of like waist high upwards, this board is absolutely going to fly. It's got a little bit more shape to it. Obviously, you'll be able to generate more speed, and it will really open up into those turns, right through to overhead barrels. So yeah, anything you can throw at it, the Boss Up's going to handle. Now, when it comes to fin setup on the Slater Designs Boss Up, it does come with a 5-fin setup, so you can experiment a little bit with fin configurations depending on the types of wave you're surfing and the kind of fins you like in your board and the feel of the board that you want as well. Now, from all the review stuff from Dan Mann, Kelly Slater, Kevin Schultz and all that, the endorphins are the way to go. This is the fin that the board was tested with and designed with, so that's a really good go-to. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't get my hands on a large set of endorphins to test the board out. They're in a bit of short supply here in Australia at the moment. So I slapped in a set of Firewire Futures in Carbon Tech into this board. Really nice large quad setup that suits me well in quite a lot of conditions. So that's the fin setup I've been testing the board in. Goes really well. I feel like the quad fin setup goes really well on this board. A lot of drive, a lot of speed, but again with that pulled in tail, still turns really nicely. Now, if you've checked out some of the videos with Kelly Slater, you'll also have heard that he rides the board with a trailer as well in smaller conditions. And Kevin Schultz is doing a bit more top-to-bottom surfing and even some aerials on this board, and he's riding it with a KS1 Endorphin thruster set. So the bottom line with this board is you've got a few fin options you can play with. So whether you want to trim with a trailer, quad setup, or thruster, chuck them in, test them out, and see which one suits you. Now, one thing on the fin front, as with all the Firewire and Slater Design boards moving forward now, they do only come in Futures fin setups. So just make sure you're aware of that. If you are currently riding FCS fins, you'll need to grab a new set of Futures fins to go with your Boss Up. Now, when it comes to construction, the Boss Up is currently available in Slater Designs Ibolic tech, which is more comparable in feel and flex to PU than their, say, helium technology. Personally, I feel like Ibolic isn't quite as durable as helium tech, which I find a little bit lighter and a little bit stronger. So just be aware of that. Even though it's still really strong, my board definitely has a few more pressure marks on it already than any of my helium boards have ever got over the lifetime of surfing them. That being said though, the Boss Up is also going to be available in Volcanic later on in the year. So if you are looking for something that's a little bit more durable, a little bit more robust, and you're not in a rush to get the Boss Up at the moment, it might be worth holding off and grabbing one in Volcanic when it's released later in 2024. Now, one of the questions I've already been asked, and the fact that I was asking it myself even before I bought this board means I wanted to include it in the review, is how does the Slater Designs Boss Up go against the Harley Ingleby Mid-6? Now, this is a question, given the fact that Firewire and Thunderbolt have split ways, and obviously the Mid-6 was a really good selling mid-length for that company. They needed to replace it, so I'm guessing this is where the Boss Up kind of sits into the line now. Now, Adam, when he was testing out, he's had a lot of experience surfing the Mid-6 as well, so it's a really good person to go to and compare both boards. In fact, when we were in the car park before and after testing, we put the boards side by side and really kind of measured them up just to see the differences between them. Now, one of the obvious things between the Mid-6 and the Boss Up is the Boss Up definitely has a much more pulled in nose, whereas the Mid-6 actually has a more tapered in tail, so that was pretty interesting. The wide point on the Boss Up is a little bit further forward than the Mid-6 as well, which probably opens up why it's a little bit better in those smaller conditions. When it comes to surfability of the two boards, both paddle really well. The Boss Up's got a slight edge on it. I did find that board really easy to paddle, especially compared to the Mid-6. Performance, both are pretty equal, to be honest. When it gets going, both of those boards absolutely fly, really easy to turn, really easy to generate and maintain a lot of speed as well. The Boss Up does have a slight edge when it comes to slightly smaller conditions. I'm not talking full groveling here. Neither of those boards go really well in full groveling mid-length conditions, but in those smaller kind of weaker waves, I felt it a little bit easier to generate speed on the Boss Up and found it that little bit easier to paddle and catch waves, whereas the mid-6 really kind of lights up in kind of bigger, cleaner conditions. Now, the other thing to keep in mind when comparing the Slater Designs Boss Up and the Harley Ingleby mid-6 is the price point. Now, Slater Designs have been quite aggressive with their pricing on the Boss Up, and it runs between about 1,200 Aussie dollars and 1,300 Aussie dollars depending on the sizing, which is considerably lower than the Thunderbolt mid-6, which is anywhere between 1,600 and 1,700 depending on the size. So even though both boards are very comparable in terms of performance, that price point may be a massive deciding factor for a lot of people. So make sure you keep that in mind. What is the Slater Designs Boss Up like to actually surf? Well, this is a combination of my personal experience on the board and also feedback that Adam gave me while he was testing out when I was out of the water injured. Now, the first thing Adam said to me when he got out of the water was how insanely easy that board was to paddle, and he didn't think he actually missed a wave the entire session that we were filming. And I can back that up as well, having jumped into the water for the last few days, both the points and the beach breaks. This board is really easy to paddle, and also really easy to duck dive as well, especially for a 7.2. So it kind of glides through the water really effortlessly. But also this wave count and paddle power is also backed up with performance as well. That long straight rail line of the board really carries speed really easily, and that combined with the drive of the quad fin setup just flies down the line and carries that speed through those smaller dead sections as well. But also that pulled in pintail and that spine running through the bottom of the board makes it really easy to turn as well. It really feels like a much shorter board underneath you. This is one of the things I noticed very quickly while I was filming Adam. It just looked great under his feet. It looked very effortless. It looked like it flowed really well. Even in comparison to the other boards I've seen him ride, this looked like a really good fit under his feet, and he was throwing it around no worries at all. And again, even with that quad fin setup, it was super easy to turn. I didn't feel like there was a lot of resistance that sometimes you feel in a quad fin setup, which kind of draws that turn out. It flicks around really nicely, and the board really does roll from rail to rail across that spine in the bottom of the board. So yeah, if you're looking to flick it around in the pocket, this board will definitely respond really nicely. And Adam even got a couple of little fin drifts, which I thought was pretty impressive, A, on a 7.2 board, and B, on a quad fin setup as well. Now, between the two of us, we tested out in a huge variety of conditions as well. Reeling point breaks, something a little bit bumpier. I've also surfed it on some beach breaks in the last couple of days as well. And overall, you know, as expected from what you've seen in the footage with Kelly and Kevin, this board can pretty much handle anything you can throw at it. So yeah, it's super easy to paddle. It'll keep your wave count really high, really easy to maneuver, and you can pretty much chuck it out in the water in pretty much anything. So it's a really good board for a huge variety of surfers in a huge variety of conditions. And overall, that's just a winning combination. I think a lot of people are going to really love the Boss Up surfboard. Especially if you're looking for that mid-length that has that little bit of extra performance in there if you need it. It's almost like a mini step up as well. So yeah, for me, the Boss Up is definitely a mid-length surfboard that I'll be keeping in my quiver. And there you have it, guys. That's my full review of the Slater Designs Boss Up mid-length surfboard. And if you have any questions about the Boss Up, make sure you ask them in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them. And of course, check out the rest of my channel for other mid-length guides, surfboard reviews, and more. That's it for this week, guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next week.